The small conference room at Maplewood Elementary had gone silent. Forks froze mid-air. All eyes turned toward the sharp, stinging sound of a man's furious voice echoing through the air. A weary public school teacher, Elara Vance, looked across at Julian Thorne, a powerful donor, whose gaze was sharp and utterly dismissive. Julian Thorne leaned forward, a sneer on his face, dissecting Elara's meticulously prepared presentation on budget constraints and innovative teaching methods. His words were not just critical, but personally demeaning, dismissing her efforts with contempt. He questioned her competence, her dedication, and the very foundation of her passion, as Elara's hands clenched under the table, battling to maintain her professional composure. Elara, trembling but resolute, attempted a professional rebuttal, defending her students and the school's mission. Julian, enraged by her defiance, slammed his hand on the table. He declared he would use every ounce of his influence as a major donor to have her removed, ensuring she would never teach at Maplewood, or anywhere else, again. Elara's breath caught, her defiance replaced by stunned disbelief. Elara walked home in a daze, the light rain mirroring the tears she couldn't shed. Julian's cruel words replayed in her mind, each syllable a fresh sting of public humiliation. The terror of losing her livelihood, of having her passion stripped away by one man's entitlement, pressed down on her, leaving her feeling broken and utterly helpless. The early morning light streamed into Elara Vance's classroom at Maplewood Elementary, illuminating the colorful posters and meticulously arranged books. It was a space she had poured her heart into, a sanctuary where young minds blossomed. With practiced hands, she tidied a stack of picture books, a gentle smile playing on her lips, a routine she cherished. But beneath the surface, a profound sense of loss washed over her. Each touch, each glance around the room was tinged with the melancholic certainty that this might be her last day. Later that morning, Elara sat across from Principal Davies in his sterile office. The principal shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze as he delivered the news. "Elara, I regret to inform you that due to unforeseen budgetary restructuring, your contract will not be renewed." His words were formal, apologetic, yet firm. Elara felt her face pale, the coded language barely concealing the truth. Julian Thorne's influence had already taken effect. The sterile room suddenly felt colder, crushing her with the weight of this unjust defeat. As the final bell rang, Elara forced a smile, bidding a tearful farewell to her students. She offered words of encouragement, her voice cracking slightly, careful not to reveal the true reason for her departure. A small boy, clutching a crudely drawn picture of a smiling stick figure holding an apple, tugged at her sleeve. "This is for you, Miss Vance," he whispered. The simple gesture, a testament to the young lives she had touched, shattered her composure, and a single tear escaped. In the bustling cafe across from Maplewood Elementary, Maya Sharma stirred her coffee, the low hum of conversation a familiar backdrop. She was a local school board member, often found here, observing. Today, however, a sharp, raised voice carried from the school's open window, slicing through the usual afternoon din. It was Julian Thorne, his words laced with a cutting disdain, directed at what sounded like a teacher's passionate, yet clearly dismissed, presentation. Maya's brow furrowed. She didn't need to see the scene to recognize the pattern. Power flexing its muscle, unchecked. The injustice of it settled heavy in her gut. The next morning, the lingering shame of her dismissal still clung to Elara like a shroud. She moved through her small apartment, mechanically emptying her worn school bag. Among the pencils, crumpled lesson plans, and a half-eaten granola bar, her fingers brushed against a smooth, unfamiliar card. She pulled it out. Maya Sharma. It read, beneath the title, Community Advocate and School Board Member. Elara remembered a woman, a sympathetic face in the periphery of her humiliation. Could this really matter? Could one young teacher with nothing left stand against a man like Julian Thorne? A flicker, almost imperceptible, stirred within her. Elara sat in Maya Sharma's small, yet meticulously organized community office, the scent of old books and fresh tea filling the air. She recounted the story, her voice trembling, expecting judgment or perhaps polite dismissal. Instead, Maya listened, her steady gaze unwavering, her expression one of deep understanding. There was no skepticism, only a quiet resolve that slowly began to soothe the raw edges of Elara's pain. "You were brave, Elara," Maya said softly, her words a balm. "And what he did, it wasn't just wrong. It was an abuse of power that poisons our entire school community." Maya leaned forward, her hands clasped on the desk. "Julian Thorne didn't just fire you, Elara. He tried to silence you, and through you, every teacher who dares to advocate for their students against undue influence." She began to explain the avenues for recourse, the ethical breaches, the legal pathways. Elara, initially hesitant, felt a new kind of strength unfurl within her. This wasn't just about her job anymore. It was about the heart of Maplewood Elementary, about protecting the integrity of public education itself. Her fear was still there, but now it was overshadowed by a burning sense of purpose. Late into the evenings, Elara and Maya delved into the public library's archives. They meticulously sifted through school board policies, donor agreements, and past complaints. A disturbing pattern emerged. Julian Thorne's name consistently linked to undue influence, affecting school decisions far beyond Elara's case. Their quiet research unveiled a deeper systemic corruption within Maplewood Elementary, making the fight feel bigger than just one person. In his opulent penthouse, Julian Thorne radiated smug satisfaction from a closed business deal. The disgruntled teacher was a distant, forgotten annoyance. He'd applied his usual pressure, certain Elara Vance had quietly vanished, accepting her defeat like so many before her. Julian never imagined someone so insignificant would dare to defy him, basking instead in his unchallenged power. His complacency was absolute. At Maplewood Elementary, a week after Elara's dismissal, hushed whispers filled the staff room. Teachers exchanged knowing glances. Budgetary restructuring was a thinly veiled lie. Tales of Julian Thorne's pervasive influence circulated, his donations dictating school decisions. A quiet outrage simmered, but the pervasive fear of his power kept their resentment muted and their lips sealed. The injustice was felt, but dared not be spoken. Days later, in Julian Thorne's office, his assistant nervously placed a large envelope on his desk. Julian, still self-congratulatory, tore it open. His confident facade crumbled instantly. The crisp legal document bore Elara Vance's name. A ghost he thought he'd buried was rising, with a lawyer by her side. Fury, sharp and sudden, contorted his face. He had been challenged. Julian Thorne paced his opulent private study, the legal notice clutched in his hand. His face, usually composed, was a furious mask, crimson with disbelief. That teacher? How dare she? He roared into his phone, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings. I want her buried, and this community advocate too. Every tactic, every loophole. I want them to regret the day they ever thought they could challenge Monholm. He slammed a crystal glass onto a polished mahogany table, the sound a sharp, violent crack in the otherwise silent room. True to Julian's vindictive nature, the internet soon became a battlefield. Local news websites began to feature articles subtly questioning Elara Vance's professional conduct. Social media feeds, once filled with school updates, now pulsed with anonymous comments and posts portraying her as a disgruntled, unprofessional employee and a troublemaker. The campaign was insidious, designed to chip away at her credibility, to make her seem less like a victim and more like a nuisance. It was a calculated attempt to silence her before her truth could be heard. Back in her modest apartment, Elara scrolled through the hateful comments, her stomach churning. The weariness she thought she'd overcome returned, heavy and suffocating. How can I fight this, Maya? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Maya Sharma sat beside her, a steady presence. Elara, they want you to doubt yourself. But your strength isn't in shouting louder. It's in your truth, your dignity. Maya gently guided Elara, helping her craft a public statement. Not one of anger, but of calm, unwavering principle. Elara's dignified response, delivered with quiet conviction, began to resonate. A local TV segment showed her speaking, and something shifted. People saw through the smears. Emboldened, other teachers and parents, who had long suffered in silence under Julian Thorne's influence, began to come forward. Whispers turned into shared stories, then into a collective voice. Online forums buzzed not with negativity, but with calls for justice. The tide was turning, a hopeful ripple growing into a wave of community support. Weeks later, Maya Sharma's modest office buzzed with newfound energy. What had been a quiet space was now a vibrant hub, overflowing with volunteers. Parents, former students, and even anonymous teachers poured in, meticulously organizing evidence, sharing hushed stories of Julian Thorne's past manipulations, and offering their unwavering support. Elara Vance moved among them, a quiet awe replacing her weariness. She saw now, with humbling clarity, that her fight was no longer just her own. It had become a symbol for every educator, every student, every person who felt silenced by the cold hand of money and power in their schools. The city council chamber, converted for a special school board meeting, was packed to capacity that evening. Every seat was taken, the aisles lined with concerned faces, and the air crackled with anticipation. Maya Sharma, composed and resolute, stood before the stern-faced school board, formally presenting the case against Julian Thorne. She detailed his undue influence, the history of his donations dictating policy, and, finally, Elara's wrongful termination. Julian Thorne sat in the front row, his usual smirk replaced by a forced, brittle smile, but even he couldn't hide the visible unease of the board members under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. In the stark, modern confines of his lawyer's office, Julian Thorne paced like a caged animal. His expensive suit felt constricting. His usual confidence dissolved into a frantic anxiety. His lawyer, a man accustomed to winning, delivered a grim assessment. "Mr. Thorne, public sentiment has decidedly turned. Your usual tactics won't work this time. This isn't just about a contract, it's about public trust." For the first time, a raw, unvarnished fear flickered in Julian's eyes. He, the man who could buy his way out of anything, faced a wall of collective defiance that money couldn't penetrate. Late that night, in Elara's small apartment, a single lamp cast long shadows as she practiced her testimony with Maya. Her voice, though steady, held a tremor of nerves. "I'm scared, Maya," she admitted, her gaze fixed on her carefully written notes. Maya placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "That's okay, Elara. But remember why you're doing this, for every student, every teacher, every person who believes in what's right." Elara nodded, her fear still present, but now overshadowed by a quiet, unyielding resolve. She wasn't just speaking for herself, she was speaking for the soul of Maplewood. The city council chamber hummed with an electric tension. Every seat was taken, every aisle packed with anxious community members, parents, and teachers. The bright glare of television cameras flashed, illuminating the formal setting that now felt like a public arena. At the center, Elara Vance sat beside Maya Sharma, her hands clasped, a quiet strength radiating despite the palpable nerves. Across the aisle, Julian Thorne glared, his usual composure strained, his eyes darting between Elara and the expectant faces in the audience. The air crackled, heavy with the weight of expectation. This was it, the ultimate showdown. When it was Elara's turn to speak, a hushed silence fell. She did not raise her voice in anger, nor did she seek vengeance. Instead, she spoke with a quiet, unwavering dignity, recounting the humiliation of that parent-teacher conference, the dismissal, and the broader pattern of how influence had seeped into the school's very foundation. Her words, honest and heartfelt, painted a vivid picture of dedication and injustice. In the audience, tears welled in some eyes. Even Julian Thorne, usually impervious, shifted uncomfortably, forced to listen to the truth he had tried so desperately to silence. After hours of testimony and deliberation, the school board chair finally delivered their findings. The gavel struck, a sound that echoed like a triumphant drumbeat through the chamber. Julian Thorne's actions, the chair announced, constituted undeniable undue influence and abuse of power, directly leading to Elara's wrongful termination. A collective gasp, then a wave of quiet relief, swept through the room. Elara's termination was officially deemed wrongful, and a formal apology, along with significant compensation, was ordered. Julian Thorne remained silent, his face a mask of stunned defeat, his arrogance finally shattered. Elara emerged from the chamber to a jubilant roar. Applause erupted, confetti streamed, and community members surged forward, embracing her. She was no longer just a teacher, she was a symbol. Maya Sharma, standing proudly by her side, addressed the press, announcing groundbreaking new policies to prevent donor influence and ensure transparency, solidifying systemic change for Maplewood Elementary. Elara, her eyes shining with tears of gratitude, shook hands, accepted heartfelt congratulations, and realized that her quiet courage had ignited a new dawn for her beloved school. Weeks later, Elara stood in her vibrant classroom, weariness replaced by quiet strength. She moved among her students, a gentle smile on her face. Her dignity wasn't something Julian Thorne could take. It was something she had bravely fought for and reclaimed. Elara's story reminds us, courage echoes louder than any roar of power. If you believe in standing for what's right, for kindness and integrity, like, share, and subscribe. Do you believe one brave act can inspire change? Tell us below.